Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. We'll be focusing on Weiss and breaking down her tools for you to get started with her in Blazblue cross tag battle. Now before I go on to the video, I'd just like to say thank you so much for the reception that I got on the Blake guide. I really didn't expect my video to be received quite so well, and for that to happen it was quite an encouraging thing, so thank you guys so much for that. Now, just as with the Blake guide, I'll be using numpad notation in this, and if you're not familiar with it, please check out this video which I think explains it pretty well, and if it does help you, please consider giving it a like. Now with that, I think we should get started and jump right in.
How dull.
Okay, first things first, let's look at her normal starting with 5A. Now as you can see, this normal has quite a bit of range. You probably want to play around the range of this normal since it outranges a lot of the cast, and because of that reason, and it's being more often than not Weiss's optimal combo starter, this is probably her most important normal. So if you can set up your game around this normal, it's very good. Now as far as special properties go for 5A, it's jump cancelable both on hit and on block. And for your chains, it goes into 2A, into 5B, into 2B, and into 2C. Now the next normal we'll look at is 4A. Now as you can see visually, it's a bit similar to 5A, but the big differences with this normal is that it's faster on startup, so it's better than 5A to use up close, and it also has less range than 5A. Now just like 5A, this normal is jump cancelable both on hit and on block. And for your chains, 4A goes into 5A, into 2A, into 5B, and into 2B. Next up we have 2A, which is her fastest normal, and it is a low. Just like 5A and 4A, this normal is jump cancelable both on hit and on block. And for your chains, it can go into itself up to 3 times, into 4A, sorry about that, there, into 4A, into 5A, and into 2B. Next, let's take a look at jump A, which is this move right here. As you can see, it probably has as much if not more range as 5A, which makes it a very good air-to-air. But because it's such a horizontal button, that means it's not a good jump in. Now having looked at her A normals, let's look into her A smart combo. So 5AA is that spinning move right here. As you can see, it hits twice. And other than that, it doesn't have any special properties to it, like jump cancelling. You can't jump cancel this at all. Now, something to note about 5AA is that it has a tendency to whiff at 5A's longer ranges. So if I'm to space myself at 5A's maximum range and try it, you see that sometimes it can whiff, which obviously is not something you want. So in these cases, it's probably better to go 5A into 2C. Okay, now let's look at 5AAA, which is that stabbing move. As you can see, it blows the opponent back quite a distance. And just like 5AA, it doesn't have anything special about it per se. So mainly for use in combos. Lastly, we have the final part of her A smart combo, where she summons up an ice pillar to hit the opponent. Now, just like with every other A smart combo in the game, you can't cancel into anything on the final hit of the smart combo, so please keep that in mind. Something else that you should be aware of is that you can go into the smart combo from 4A. You do not have to do it from 5A alone. So 4A, it works. So keep that in mind.
Not yet. How dull.
Okay, with that, we're ready to move on to her B normals. First is 5B, which is this move right here. Now, this move has head invulnerability, meaning that it's her main anti-air. So if I may demonstrate that. Yeah, as you can see, Blake's jump 2A gets beaten by it.
Not bad. Done.
Now, this isn't the best anti-air in the game, but it's also not the worst, so it's worth using.
Gotta move.
And I think the main problem with this move as an anti-air is that, as you can see, she moves a bit forward. So as you're spacing yourself for the anti-air, you need to keep that in mind. You'll often need to be a bit further away from your opponent than you would think for it to be effective. So please keep that in mind.
Gotta move.
Now, other than the head invulnerability, 5B doesn't have anything special about it per se. You can't jump cancel it at all. And for your chains, 5B goes into 2B and into 2C.
Not yet.
Next up we have 2B, which is a low. And just like 5B, there are no special properties to this move. You'll probably be using it most in combos or block strings. You can't jump cancel it at all. Now for your chains, 2B goes into 5B and into 2C.
Not yet.
Okay, next let's take a look at her jump B, which is this move right here. Now, as you can see, as opposed to jump A, this is angled downwards, meaning that this is a good jump in. And it does cross up, but the hitbox for crossing up is a bit tight, so you'll have to space yourself well if you want to use it like that. But yeah, otherwise, jump B is a very good jump in. Alright, now let's take a look at the rest of her smart combo, her B smart combo, which has two parts. So this is 5BB. Now this is jump cancelable, but only on hit. You cannot jump cancel it on block. When you try it, it can't. Now you'll be using 5BB a lot in combos. It's very common for Weiss, so 5BB jump cancel into an air series, such as that. But just like with 5AA, as we discussed earlier, you need to be careful at the range at which you try to use 5BB. So if you were to space yourself at around 5B's max range, around so, as you can see, 5BB has a tendency to whiff. So you want to be careful about that. If you are able to, confirm the distance that you are at and perhaps go into 2C instead of 5BB. Okay, now we're ready to take a look at her C normals, and starting with her overhead 5C. She goes quite a distance forward to hit this, as you can see. And other than that, there's nothing really special about it. It's a universal overhead, as you probably know. Next up, we have her sweep, her 2C. Now, as you can see, this normal has quite a lot of range, and it's a very good sweep just for this reason. Now, as discussed previously, if you're at a range where you feel like 5AA will whiff, it might be a better idea to confirm your distance first before you commit to it, so that you can decide whether it would be better to go into 5AA or go into 2C. Next, we have her jump C, which is this move right here. Now, you'll mainly be using this for combos, otherwise there's nothing very special about this normal, other than if you can notice, she kind of does a mini jump in the air when she does this. Now what that means is that you can't use this as an instant overhead. If I can demonstrate it here. As you can see, it will always wave because she does that little jump. This normal goes pretty high. And even when you're falling, as you're falling with it, as you can see, she does that little jump. So other than that, nothing really special about this normal. You'll be using it in combos. And with that, we're ready to take a look at her specials. And we'll start with her 236 specials. So this is 236A. As you can see, it summons a glyph that shoots a projectile at an enemy. And her 236B is very similar, except that it summons the glyph in the air. Now both of these, they do have some amount of tracking in them. So the projectile will try to home in onto where the opponent was when you performed the move. Now 236C is quite different from A and B in that it summons two projectiles instead. As you can see, one closer to the ground and one in the air. Now, as you probably noticed, these projectiles take quite a bit of time to come out. This means they're not very suitable to zoning. I would not advise you to try to zone with Weiss, especially against other zoners. You will lose. You should not try to get into a fireball war if you're playing Weiss. You will almost definitely lose, especially against characters like New and Rachel. The most reliable way I've found of using these projectiles is after a 2C. Like if you've done a combo and you end with 2C, you can do 2C into 236B. And the projectile will hit them on their wake up, no matter how they tech. So as you can see, on neutral tech, it hits Blake as she gets up. And now just to further explore this, let's set Blake to wake up with a counterattack like her fastest normal. And let's have her do forward tech. So if I'm going to do 2C into 236B, you can see it counter hits her. And you can't get a combo after this. This is also the case with back tech. As you can see. Now here we run into the problem of 5AA whiffing. So instead of doing 5AA, we want to do 5A to C. Now her 236 specials do have a special property to them. If you hold the button when you do them, instead of shooting a projectile, they set black glyphs. And that works for the A, B, and C versions. So in total, you can have 4 glyphs on the screen at the same time. Now, unfortunately, these glyphs go away when you switch out Weiss as your active character. So if I switch in Ori, you see after as soon as Weiss leaves the field, they disappear. Which I don't think is very fair, to be honest. Because Rachel, for example, she keeps her Lobelias whether or not she's on the screen at the time. And I would argue that Rachel's Lobelias are quite a bit more powerful than Weiss's glyphs. So personally, I'm not very happy about glyphs disappearing when Weiss leaves the field.
I'm here.
But, well, as long as you know and are aware of it, just keep this in mind. If you have a lot of glyphs set up and there's no reason for you to switch out Weiss, you probably don't want to do it. Now, as for what these glyphs actually do, they interact with another one of our specials, which is what we'll be discussing next. Okay, next we look at our 214 specials, starting with 214A, which is this lunge. As you can see, it has quite a bit of range. Now, it doesn't hit to the edge of that strike effect, but the range is still pretty good.
Not yet. Not yet.
Next is 236B, which is this.
Not yet.
As you can see, she starts with the lunge and hits upwards.
Not yet.
Now this move, it has more startup than 214A, but it also has a lot more range. It goes really far.
Not yet.
So you can often surprise your opponent with this.
Not yet.
So yeah, I think this is a very good special.
Not yet.
Now next up we have 214C,
Not yet.
which is this move right here.
Not
Now as you can see, it throws the opponent away from you.
yet.
Now I haven't found myself using this version as much as the others. Yeah, I haven't found a lot of use for this.
Not yet.
Mainly I've been using the A and B versions, which I think are very good on their own. As for the C version, I haven't found much use for it, honestly.
Not yet.
Now, just like her Ice Shard, her 2-4 specials have a property when you hold the button. So it's this feint. She takes the stance like she's about to do the move, but she doesn't actually do it. So this might be useful for faking your opponent out and making them afraid of getting hit by this move. Like for example, as we've seen, 214B goes really far. So you might be able to force them to have to do something just by feinting the move. Now, as I mentioned previously, her 2-4 special does interact with the black glyphs, and we're going to go over how they do so. So, if you collide with a black glyph as you're doing the lunge,
Not yet.
there are some follow-ups you can go to as long as you're in contact with the glyph. So how you activate these follow-ups is by hitting up and a button. So this is the 8A follow-up.
Not yet.
Now this move does cross up, as you can see.
Not yet.
This is the B follow-up, which is a kind of dive, as you can see.
Not yet.
And next is her C follow-up, which is this 2-hitting move.
Not yet. Not yet.
Now her 2-4 special does work in the air, except that this time it takes the form of this dive. Now, just like the grounded versions, her jump 2-4 does work with the glyphs, and it has the exact same follow-ups.
Not yet.
So keep that in mind.
Not yet.
Okay, finally, we have her 2-2 specials. This is 2-2A.
Ice pillar.
You can see it summons a small ice pillar. And 2-2B is the same, except that the ice pillar is much larger.
Is that all?
Now, this pillar, it has a hitbox, as you can see. You can't just run through it. Though some characters can do it with special moves like Line's roll. She can actually go through the pillars. But otherwise, this has a collision box. You can't just run through it. Both Weiss and the enemy can't go through it. Now, her 2-2C isn't an ice pillar. Instead, it's a parry, which I'll demonstrate here. Yeah, as you can see, Blake gets hit if she tries
Not yet.
to hit Weiss. And now you can combo after this parry. So with 2A, for example.
Not yet.
Okay, finally, let's look at her reversal, which is this. It's called Snow Globe. Now, as you can see, she summons ice all around her. And this move, it actually does hit all around her. So it's very good for beating cross-ups, as you can see. Now, it doesn't have the greatest vertical range, but it's an all-round good DP, especially since it protects you from cross-ups. So if you see an opportunity to use it, it's very good. Okay, it's time to take a look at her distortions. Let's start with her 236, which is that. It's pretty much a projectile distortion, and this is probably the one that you'll find yourself using most. It's very good to end combos with, because it has such high startup that even when your hit stun has decayed for quite a bit, this distortion will still hit. Now her 236 distortion is this dash forwards. Now as you've seen, it has a tendency to whiff at a certain range. I'm not sure why that happens, but it's something that you need to be careful of. And it doesn't quite go full screen. Don't try to use this at full screen. She'll stop just short of the enemy. Now, as I've said, at a certain range, right there as you can see, at a certain range around 3/4, it just goes right through the enemy. I'm not sure why this happens again, but be careful about just throwing it out at this range automatically. Oh, and something else to mention, this super it's projectile invincible, and it does beat projectile distortion, so you can use it that way. Okay, now let's take a look at her assist, starting with 5P. Now, as you can see, that's her 214C. It goes a fair distance forward, and it gives you quite a bit of time to confirm whether you got the hit or not. So it's a decent assist. Her next assist, her 6P, is her 236B special. And her 4P is her 214B. But as you can see, it doesn't travel nearly as far as the actual special itself. And that first little lunge that she does, it actually doesn't hit the opponent. She only hits them on the way up. Now this has to be said. Unfortunately, as per her assists, Weiss is very weak. Her assists aren't very good at all. Her 5P is decent because, as I've said, it goes a good distance forward, and it does give you a lot of time to confirm whether you hit or not. But her 6P, just like the actual special, is very slow on startup, so you can't really use it as a zoning tool. And it's quite difficult to use. It's quite difficult to use in any other way, like for Oki, as you would with Weiss on point. You can't really do that with it as an assist. And her 4P, as we've seen, the purpose of it looks to be an anti-air, but as we've seen, first she goes a little bit forward and then she goes up. So we have the issue of startup, and we have the same issue as her 5B in that she goes forward a bit. So you have to consider the spacing more than a straight up anti-air. And the fact that it doesn't hit during the lunge means that it's not very good for other uses. So, unfortunately, it has to be said that Weiss's assists aren't very good. So, for that reason, I think that her ideal partners are characters that don't really rely on assists themselves. So, maybe like Ruby or Godot, are characters that don't live and die by assists. So, that's something to consider if you really want to play her. Okay, so we've reached the combo section of the guide. We'll be providing you some beginner combos to get you started with. Now, my partner for this will be Ori, but you can probably
How dull.
translate the combos as you need for your own partners. So yeah, I'll be putting the notations for the combos on screen as I do them. So yeah, sit back and watch.
Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Pardon me. Not yet. Sacred fire. Not yet. Don't make it too easy. Well, sacred fire. Not yet. Don't make it too easy. Pardon me. We'll be done. Not yet. How dull. Pardon me. Not yet. Pardon me. Deploy. Go You're strong. Not yet. Sacred fire. Not yet. Do you understand now? Do you understand now?
Okay, everyone, we've reached the end of the guide. Thank you so much for keeping up with me throughout this video. Just like with the Blake guide, I'll be leaving some gameplay clips for you to watch as I do some of the combos that I have demonstrated so that you can see that they are actually viable in a real match. So if this video has helped you, consider sharing it around with anyone else who is interested in playing Weiss. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a pleasant day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
We must strive for the best versions of ourselves. There's no time to stand idly by.